Hey guys, so today we are going to explore how to use the Bezier pen to better effect in Adobe After Effects. So you'll see you've got this little image that you can download here. This is plain anchors and handles. And what it is simply a sort of skeleton, as it were, and it's sort of pieced together of the outline of an airplane. And you notice here we've got these square nodes and these circular nodes. Recall that when you use the Bezier curve, you're constructing this sort of vector image based off of math and stuff, which you can scale infinitely. But the square nodes are the anchor points, which indicate a change in direction, and the circle nodes are the direction handles, which indicate how the curve is going to go. So you notice here this little circle is going up and to the left, and so this curve goes up and to the left. And same over here, we've got these different things. And we'll talk about the different sort of commands they have and the different sort of keys you can place when you create this. So let's make a new project and let's make a new composition. We're going to keep all the same settings as before. 1920 by 1080 and 60 frames a second and 10 seconds long. The background color can be whatever you like. Press OK. And we're going to drag this image in here. Just go over here to my downloads. And we'll just drag this down into After Effects, place it here in our project bin, and there it is. We'll just drag this down into our composition, Comp 1. It might be a bit big for our purposes, but I think for now we can just leave this the way it is. Okay, so let's deselect the plane down here, and let's right-click and make a new shape layer. Recall that if we are to use the shape layer, the pen tool, with anything else selected, it's going to create a mask. We don't want a mask. I'm going to go over here to my fill. I'll press the word fill. If you hover over the word fill, you'll see fill options appears. You click on that. Just hit this little rectangle with the red slash through it. Press OK. And for stroke, let's make the stroke something bright that's easy to see against red. So instead of pressing the word stroke, we'll press the little color stroke. And we'll just select red. I will select red. You can select whatever you'd like. Again, if you're not seeing what I'm seeing, you can go over here to Window, Workspace, Default, and then just choose Reset Default Save Layout, and it should appear the same way. Once again, I'm here on Shape Layer 1. I'm going to select my pen tool. So make sure that it's just pen tool. And let's just start into it. I'm going to start right here, and I'm just going to click once at this very upper left-hand corner. Just click once on this anchor point as best you can. Click once, and we've carried our first anchor point. For this one, what we'll do is we'll click, but we won't let go until we've established where our direction handles are. So we click and we drag, and let's drag until those direction handles just about match up with what's on the little template behind it. So you notice here, if I extend it too far, then this direction at the top isn't quite right, but you know what? Hey, it's okay. We'll just stop it there. And then we'll click once on this anchor point here and just let go. Right? That means that when we click on this next anchor point, it's going to be a straight line. So I click once here, and there you go. Okay, so this next one is going to be a bit tricky. Let's click and we'll drag until this direction handle matches. But then once we've got that, let's hold down the Alt key. And when we hold down the Alt key, this direction handle will move independently. And we can arrange for that to kind of come up right about here and let go. And you won't see this little circular widget hanging out here because this was done in Illustrator, so don't worry about that. All right, with that done, that means that this direction handle is going to push our curve off to the right. So we'll click and we'll drag right here just to match those direction handles as best you can. And then we're at the lower left-hand corner. Oops. I'm using a touch pad here, so it's sensitive. Click and drag until these two direction handles meet. Right about here. And then we won't click and drag at all. We'll just click once, and that should, this direction handle will push this over here. Fabulous. All right, cool. So we got Shape Layer 1. Let's stay on Shape Layer 1. We're still building shapes. Let's just click right here. This is going to be where our wing goes. And you can make the wing any way you like, but I'm just going to make it a straight line. If you want to try adding some curves, you're welcome to, but it's just going to be some straight angles here. I'll just click once, and I'll click twice over against this line right here. I'm going to kind of go down and to the left a little bit. And then it'll hold down the Shift key. If you hold down the Shift key, it's going to constrain this to be a straight line. And I'll make this a bit shorter than this line over here. And then I'll just connect it up over this way. So we've got that. Now, if at any point you want to move any of these points, like say for instance you want to move this point, you can just click and drag it. And once again, hold down the Shift key to keep it going in a straight line. Maybe you want to move this one over too. So it looks like it's sort of moving backwards. And then we'll do the same thing again. I'm going to see if I can't separate this a little bit from here. I'll just click once right above it, or maybe in the same general path. And then make it about the same width here. Because this is, behind the plane, this is going to be the wing that's going to be behind the plane. We'll make it a little bit shorter. So I'll just sort of move up and then to the left. Hold on the Shift key. And then just like that. So maybe this should be a little bit shorter. Because again, it's foreshortened. These could both move a little bit. But again, it's up to you ultimately where that wing goes. So if it doesn't look perfect, it's not a big deal. Okay, so let's add a fill to everything. I'm going to make this grayish plane. So I'll add a fill here. And I'll actually just click on the whole shape layer 1 and add a fill to everything. What I'll do is I'm going to open up and I'll take the stroke away. So if you want to keep a stroke, you're welcome to keep a stroke, but change it to something other than red. Like say for instance, like a darker gray. Might work. I'll expand this little shape layer 1 over here by clicking this little greater than symbol. And I'll expand this contents area by clicking the same symbol here. And you notice we got shape 3, shape 2, and shape 1. And they're made in the order that we created them. Now, if you have more than this, I would suggest you just kind of go through and press the little eyeball icon on the sides and isolate the shape objects that are empty. Because there are sometimes you create a shape object by clicking once and then moving on to something else, and you create another shape object. So see if you can't break this down to only 3 shapes. If you can keep it only 3 shapes, keep it a lot simpler, that'd be awesome for you. All right, so click on shape 3, or at least whatever shape corresponds to the wing that's in the background, and let's drag it down below shape 1. Right, so we click off of this, and we have these strokes, but if you wanted to say, for instance, add a little character to it, what you could do is you could say, for instance, take shape 3 and maybe make it a bit darker, click on your fill, and just drag it down slightly to darken it somewhat, and maybe even take shape 2 and, who knows, even lighten it a little bit. That way you could give it somewhat of a balance of like, the further we go back, the more shadows there are. Okay, so we'll just keep it there. We'll just leave it that. We're not going to add anything else to it. But what we will do now is we are going to animate it. So let's get rid of our little template here. I'll just click on that and press delete on the keyboard. And because we kept this all on the same shape layer, we can animate everything in tandem. What I'll do here is I'm going to click on the letter P on the keyboard for position. I'll make a keyframe. And I'll raise this up as high as it'll go without going off of my canvas here. So I'll just pull this up as high as it'll go. And the tail's a bit higher than the wings, so I'll just right about the tail. And then I'm going to go over here to maybe 1 second in. Then I'll lower it down as low as it'll go before it gets cut off. And then I'll do is I'll go to 2 seconds, and I'll leave my little timeline marker there, but I'll click on this keyframe here, and then just hold down the control button and press C, and then hold down the control button and press V. Control C, Control V, copy and paste. So when we play this, we can see it just goes down, and then comes back up. So instead of having to go through the entire thing and putting in new keyframes for each second to have it go up and down, what we can do is we can create an expression. So we've talked before about expressions. Expressions are simple code that you put in to make it loop, right? So in this case, we don't need to type anything out. We can just choose from a list of like sort of a menu of expressions. We'll hold down the Alt key, press this little stopwatch here, and then it's going to give us a little transform position expression hanging out there, and everything turns red and black and very scary. So let's just quickly find ourselves an expression to use. I'm gonna hit this little button that looks like a circle with a triangle in the middle of it. Click on that, and let's find property. Hold that down until this new window pops up. Scroll up middle or so where you see loop out duration, type cycle, duration, 0, all that stuff. Just click on that. The meaning behind all that is not super important, but once you click out of it, you'll notice that if you scroll on, it continues to go up and down. Now, hopefully, because we copied and pasted these values, it'll be a seamless loop. Down, up, down, up. The one thing we don't want is for it to suddenly jump cut, like jump positions. So with that done, if you wanted to say, for instance, look at this and say, okay, well, this is going to be about 10 seconds long. That means it's going to go down and up 5 times. If you wanted this to go faster, obviously we could just move these one by one. But if we wanted to keep the rate the same, what we could do is we could just sort of select all 3 of these, and then hold down the Alt key, and drag the last one back, until it all fits into 1 second. And they keep the same little thing here. Down, up, down, up. All right, last thing we'll do is let's move somewhere here in the middle between these two. And let's put our name on this plane. Let's click on the letter T on the keyboard. Well, no, not the letter T. That's actually going to bring up the opacity. Let's click on the letter T up here. Control T is what we would click. And anywhere on this plane, just click and then type your last name or your first name or whatever. And let's make this something besides Myriad Pro. I might make mine Century Gothic, like I like to do. Make it Century Gothic bold. And if you wanted to add in, you know, a new color to it, that's fine. If you wanted to keep it like gray or white or something, you could. Recall that if we want to change the color of the fill, we click on this solid rectangle, and we can change the fill to whatever we'd like. If we wanted to change the color of the stroke, we click on this sort of hollowed out rectangle, and we can change the stroke to whatever we'd like. In this case, I might make it black, or even this dark gray. I can just hit my little eyedropper there, and then choose this dark gray, and I'll press OK. Now what happens here is that this is kind of moving up and down, and that's not ideal, but what I can do is I can kind of position this right about here or so to where it's sort of hanging out, you know, where I want it to be. I'll press page down to position it. And what I'll do is I'll hit on my name here, I'll hit the letter P on the keyboard, and then for the position keyframe, I'm going to find this little parent and link whip. If you don't see this, you should see a little button down here that says toggle switches and modes. So if you hit toggle switches and modes, it should show both the mode and then like the track mat thing and all this other stuff. What I'll do is I'll just drag this little property pick whip and drag it down to shape layer 1. Oh, let's see here, there's an error. How about instead we just find this little parent link and just hold it right there. There we go. Now it's just cool, awesome. So we have parented our name, we have linked our name to our plane. That way it just kind of goes up and down. Once again, let me just repeat that real fast. What we did, I'm just pressing U on the keyboard here to get rid of all the keyframes. Right, we've got this little name here, we've got this little parent and link whip here. If you don't see it, there's a button that says toggle switches and modes you can click. Just drag that from here to shape layer 1, and then it'll follow it along. All right, once you're done with that, let's go over here to File, Export, Add to Media Encoder Queue, and export it using the Adobe Media Encoder. Once again, when you bring this up, you'll have to wait for it to populate. Once it populates, you'll want to click on this blue text and make sure you're saving this to some place you can access easily. In this case, I'm going to place it in my downloads folder, and I'll call this one plain. just press start. And while that encodes, let me go back to After Effects here. And what we'll do is we'll just save this. And we'll make sure we save this once again in a place we can find and name it something that we can figure out. Call it plane loop. And that'll save. And we can access this later. So you'll want to make sure that you have a plane that's available for you later on. And you'll also want to make sure that you've got the MP4 that you can turn in to me. One thing to note, we didn't add anything to the background, so when I finally watch this, you can see down here, it's going to have a black background. That's what happens when you export the composition without adding anything to the background, because that little background color is just nothing, it's just like a placeholder. So if you watch this, it'll be, black in the background. So if you wanted to add a background, you could. The way you do that is by right-clicking, adding a new solid, and then choosing whatever color you'd like. If you wanted to color the sky, you could find the color of the sky here. And you could just drag it to the bottom and export it that way. So there you go. All right, so once again, we're going to submit this MP4 to the Dropbox. Let me know if you have any questions. Can't wait to see you guys produce. I'll see you in class.